Dr. James Collins walked through the hospital doors with an air of confidence that bordered on arrogance. He was tall, sharply dressed, and always walked with his head held high. A renowned surgeon, Dr. Collins had worked in some of the country's most prestigious hospitals and had now been transferred to St. Gabriel's Hospital, where his expertise was eagerly awaited. He considered himself the best, and in his mind that meant no one in the hospital could match his skills or knowledge. As he strode into the busy hospital wing, nurses and doctors alike noticed his presence. His reputation had preceded him, and whispers of his brilliance floated around. Yet there was something about Dr. Collins that made people uneasy. His presence commanded respect, but it was a respect built on fear rather than admiration. Among the hospital staff was Nurse Viola, a seasoned nurse with over 25 years of experience. She was well known for her compassion, diligence, and ethical approach to patient care. A woman of color, Nurse Viola had faced countless challenges throughout her career, but her resilience and commitment to her patients never wavered. She had become a pillar in the hospital, respected by most, except Dr. Collins. From the moment Dr. Collins met her, he dismissed her. In his mind, no nurse, especially not one like Viola, could ever match the prestige and knowledge of a doctor like himself. He was polite but curt, often ignoring her suggestions or input during patient rounds. While other nurses followed his orders without question, Viola's approach was different. She was meticulous and thorough and always put the patient's well-being first, sometimes even questioning the decisions made by the doctors. To Dr. Collins, this was unacceptable. The tension between Dr. Collins and Nurse Viola grew over the weeks. He had little patience for her careful attention to detail, and she, in turn, silently resented his dismissive attitude. There were several moments where their professional disagreements became evident. One afternoon, they were assigned to a particularly critical case, an elderly patient with multiple complications who needed immediate surgery. Dr. Collins believed that swift action was the best course, but Nurse Viola, after reviewing the patient's charts and history, advised caution. She noticed subtle signs that pointed to underlying issues that could complicate the surgery if not addressed. But Dr. Collins, with his characteristic arrogance, brushed off her concerns. "Nurse Viola, I've been performing surgeries for over a decade. I think I know what I'm doing," he said sharply. "I understand, doctor, but we need to consider all the risks," Viola replied calmly, her voice steady but firm. Dr. Collins sighed impatiently. "I appreciate your input, but I make the decisions here. Let's proceed." The surgery went ahead as planned, but Nurse Viola couldn't shake the uneasy feeling in her gut. Sure enough, halfway through the operation, complications arose. Complications that could have been avoided if the patient had been prepped differently. While the patient survived, the situation was more dire than it needed to be, and Dr. Collins was left shaken. For the first time, he realized that perhaps he wasn't infallible. Yet instead of acknowledging Nurse Viola's foresight, he remained silent. His pride wouldn't allow him to admit that he had been wrong and that Nurse Viola had been right. He continued with his duties, bearing the guilt beneath layers of professionalism. Weeks later, an important event took place at the hospital. It was the annual employee recognition ceremony, where nurses, doctors, and staff members were honored for their contributions and outstanding work. Dr. Collins, who usually skipped such events, decided to attend this year, thinking that perhaps he might be in the running for one of the prestigious awards. The auditorium was filled with the buzzing energy of hospital staff, all excited for the evening's announcements. One by one, names were called, and applause filled the room. Dr. Collins sat in the back, arms crossed, waiting for his moment. But to his surprise, the night's highest honor, an award for excellence in patient care, was given to none other than Nurse Viola. As Viola walked to the stage to accept her award, the room erupted into a standing ovation. Her colleagues admired her not only for her skills, but for her unwavering commitment to her patients and her ethical approach to nursing. She had been a mentor to many, a guiding light in the hospital, and her recognition was well-deserved. Dr. Collins sat in disbelief. How could a nurse whom he had dismissed so many times, receive such an honor? And then, as Viola gave her acceptance speech, something shifted within him. "Thank you for this incredible honor," Nurse Viola began, her voice calm and warm. "But this isn't just for me. This is for every nurse, every doctor, and every staff member who chooses to put the patient first. We are all here for one reason: to provide the best care possible. and that requires humility, collaboration, and a willingness to learn from each other, no matter our titles. Her words struck a chord with Dr. Collins. He had always seen himself as superior, believing that a nurse's role was to follow orders, not offer input. But in that moment, he realized that true patient care wasn't about titles or hierarchy. It was about working together with compassion and integrity. After the ceremony, Dr. Collins approached Nurse Viola for the first time with a genuine sense of humility. "Nurse Viola, I want to apologize. I've been wrong in the way I've treated you and disregarded your input. You were right, and I should have listened." Viola smiled gently. "We're all here to learn, Doctor. Collins, it's never too late to start." From that day forward, Dr. Collins changed his approach to medicine. He began to see his colleagues, especially the nurses, as equals, professionals who brought their own expertise and insights to the table. He listened more and collaborated more, and in time, his reputation as a brilliant but arrogant surgeon transformed into that of a compassionate and humble doctor who valued every member of his team. The transformation didn't stop with Dr. Collins. His newfound humility had a ripple effect throughout the hospital. Nurses who had once been afraid to speak up felt empowered to share their insights, and doctors who had once held tight to their egos began to loosen their grip. The hospital culture shifted from one of rigid hierarchy to one of true collaboration. Dr. Collins and Nurse Viola became unlikely allies, working together on several critical cases and even mentoring younger staff on the importance of integrity, humility, and teamwork in patient care. Their story became a lesson for all, showing that greatness in healthcare doesn't come from individual brilliance, but from collective effort and mutual respect. In the end, Dr. Collins' journey wasn't just about learning humility. It was about understanding that in the world of medicine, every role is vital, every voice matters, and the best care comes from recognizing the value in each other. The story of Dr. Collins and Nurse Viola teaches us that true leadership and greatness come not from superiority, but from humility, respect, and the willingness to listen to others. No matter how skilled or knowledgeable we may be, there is always something to learn from those around us. By fostering a culture of collaboration and mutual respect, we can provide better care and make a lasting difference in the lives of others.